game-related video stream, whatever you want to call it. And today's topic is, well, 30 years of PlayStation. So, the 3rd of December 2024 will be 30 years of the PlayStation. I think that's a US figure. Pretty don't think we got the PlayStation until sort of 95 over here in the UK. But it's still 3rd of December, but make that 1994, is when Sony entered the gaming market. So, and it changed the gaming landscape forever. It was odd to see a company that had never been into gaming before just come in and absolutely trounce what was there. And in all fairness, it was a fairly easy market to get into. You had Nintendo, who had ruled the roost, with Sega trying to sort of cut in and doing an okay job of it. But Nintendo really were the ones that would be in Sony's competition. And because Sony came in with a different style of gaming, a different attitude towards it, I think that helped. So I was a Sega fan. Never really owned a PlayStation. Was always a fan of the Sega Saturn. My wife did. My wife to be at the time did have a PS1, the little sort of smaller, revised PlayStation. But personally, I never had that. And even when we moved sort of generation, I went from the Saturn to the Dreamcast. It wasn't until the PlayStation 2 I got into that quite late. As much as I love the Dreamcast, you just can't knock the success and the legacy that the PlayStation 2 owned. It is the biggest selling console of all time. If you check out my previous stream, there is a question as to whether that's going to hold that title or not. But for now, the PlayStation 2 is the biggest selling console of all time, and it was that golden era of gaming before everything went HD and online and all that. And for quite some time, Sony just had the market. They came from nowhere. They kind of flattened Sega, pushed Nintendo aside, and for a few years they were the big newbie on the block. Everyone wanted a PlayStation. Even when you went into the PlayStation 2 era, it's some of the reason the Dreamcast didn't do so well, because people were holding out for this amazing PlayStation 2, because the first PlayStation had been so successful and changed the way that people envisaged gaming. It wasn't just a nerdy thing that kids did. This was a console that deserved to sit under your main TV, and it was very adult orientated, especially with the marketing and the pricing, and it dragged gaming out from what nerdy teens did to sort of a cool pastime. And the PlayStation 2 came along, absolute beast of a machine. Was also had a built-in DVD player, which at the time was a new thing. DVDs were still becoming on the market. It was often the cheapest way of getting a DVD player, so it made it more of a home entertainment center or system, rather than just a games machine. And this was just before Microsoft decided to enter the market. I think they'd obviously seen what Sony had been doing. Microsoft had some ties with Sega in some forms, like with the Dreamcast had some kind of tie with Microsoft and its operating system. But the Xbox came in, and it was fantastic. Lovely console, probably one of my favourite consoles of all time. But it just couldn't match the success that Sony had started with the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2. It was just a beast rolling along, sort of taking out everything else in its path. The PlayStation 3, that's probably my favourite console of all time. It's the console I spent the most time playing and spending on, um, and it was big, it was powerful, it was feature packed, and it brought in a new era of gaming, an era of gaming that I think I was quite happy with it at the time in on the PlayStation 3. The PS2 was great. Buy a disc, put it in, off it goes. That's the era that I quite like. But the PS3 brought in this new online stores, patches, buying games online, online play, and I liked it when it was sort of PS3 way, but once they really got into that with the PS4, it kind of put me off. So after that, that was about it. The PS4 never really interested me because it wasn't backward compatible, and I really got back into my real passion for portable gaming with the PSP and the PlayStation Vita. The PSP, the PlayStation 4 was a big success, and so is the PS5 if you're looking at sales figure. And it's just, we're just going to run through some of the sales for the Sony platforms. So you've got the PlayStation 1, that sold 101 million. The PlayStation 2 is 153 million, making it the biggest selling console of all time. The PS3, about 87 million. The PS4, 117 million. The PS5 is currently sitting at about 61 million. And if we look at the portable side of it, the PlayStation Portable, 80 million. And the PlayStation Vita, rather poor, 15 million. So you've got some massive hitters in there. So the original PlayStation, PS2 and the PS4 are big. Even the PSP that had to take on the beast that was Nintendo's portable side. So that 80 million is a damn good effort, really. With the Vita, a very misunderstood console. Yeah, what else have we got note-wise? So, Sony came out of nowhere, failed. Oh, it was a bit of a failed partnership, if I remember rightly. I think Sony approached Nintendo. They wanted to make some kind of add-on, like a I can't remember what it was called. The Nintendo PlayStation, that's a sort of a phrase that gets kicked around, and I think Nintendo pulled out at the last minute, annoyed Sony, and then Sony thought, no, I'm going to go off and do our own thing, and well, history is history. Like I said, Sony have done a lot for the gaming market. They made it cool. They made gaming a thing for adults. And Nintendo are still around. They're still highly successful. They kind of do their own thing. There isn't really sort of anyone that can match them on their side of things. Microsoft have tried to sort of compete with Sony, but with some success. Although the Xbox brand never really matched what you could with the Sony brand, and the Microsoft are struggling a little bit. But it seems that no one can keep up with Sony, and this 30 years has really given us a whole new way of looking at gaming. So I'm going to just say happy birthday to the PlayStation, and what it's done with the gaming landscape over the last sort of 30 years is absolutely fantastic. I'm a big fan of them. Like I said, PS3 is probably one of my most favourite consoles, if not the favourite console of all time. Love the PS2. Have a lot of respect for the PlayStation, although at the time I was a bit biased towards Sega, so I stayed away from that. And even on the portable side, I think they did a fantastic job there. Once again, trying to step portable gaming away from this sort of cut down childish options that Nintendo were given. Sony came along and banged out two consoles in the portable that were sort of AAA, almost home quality gaming. So yeah, that's about it, I think, for this live chat. If you want some sales figures for some of the other consoles, and it just shows you just how big Sony was. So if the PlayStation 1 sold 102 million, but the Saturn, the same generation, only sold 9 million. You've got the PS2 selling 153 million, with the Dreamcast only selling 9 million, and the original Xbox selling 24 million, all in the same generation. 360, the Xbox 360 didn't do too bad. That sold 84 million compared to the PS3's 87 million. If we look at the Xbox One, that is in the same generation as the PlayStation 4. The Xbox One sold 58 million, with the PS4 selling 117, so that's almost twice as much. And don't even get me started on the current gen, with PlayStation 5 selling 61 million, and the Xbox Series S X selling a measly 21 million, and really sort of struggling. Sony seems to be doing very well. We've now just had the announcement of the PS5 Pro. That's due out this year, sort of just before the 30th anniversary. A very niche product, but it's still good nonetheless, and I'm sure it will sell well enough to the market that it's intended to. And that is it for the 30th year. We've got to wait a little bit longer for PlayStation 6. And hopefully we can see in 2034 40 years of the PlayStation. But for now, this is 30 years, and a quick look back at just how sales have gone, and how they came in and pushed like Sega aside, even pushed Nintendo aside, and have held their own against Microsoft to become this huge global gaming brand. And I don't want to push Nintendo away, but Nintendo do their own thing. They have their own little market. They have their own way of doing things, their own set of consumers. Whereas Sony are different. They go down this more powerful, big route, and it works for them, as you can see. So, yay, happy birthday for the PlayStation brand. It's 30 years on the 3rd of December, when we first saw in 1994 the launch of the original PlayStation, and everything else has changed since then. The rest is history. Like, subscribe. If you do enjoy my videos, then please look at my other ones, and just carry on watching these live streams and my regular videos. Enjoy. Yeah.